Welcome to the Lean Solutions Podcast, where we discuss business solutions to help listeners develop and implement action plans for true lean process improvement. I am your host, Patrick Adams. Hello and welcome to the Lean Solutions Podcast. My guest today is Adam Ward. Adam is an experienced executive coach who's helped hundreds of leaders achieve their goals. He's had an uncanny ability to identify root causes that prevent organizational growth and help clients overcome these challenges and obstacles at scale. Adam has a wealth of experience working with executives in various industries. He's worked with CEOs, CFOs, COOs, CMOs, and other senior leaders. He's also fluent in operational excellence, design thinking, Agile, and other operational development methodologies. Adam is also an Amazon bestseller, and he's the author of Lean Design in Healthcare and the Healthcare Innovators Workbook. Welcome to the show, Adam.
Patrick, thanks for having me on. Appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
No, I'm excited to talk. I always love having people on who are working in the healthcare industry because lean is obviously, as all of our listeners know, lean can be applied in any industry at any time.
Yeah.
And it's just really fun for me to see how the healthcare industry is utilizing the principles, the tools, the techniques, because we do have to be flexible with those. And when we go into the healthcare industry, we're not making widgets. We're dealing with human beings. So I always love talking to people who've been in the healthcare industry. Adam, one of the things that I mentioned when I introduced you was your experience in design thinking and Agile, a few other areas, but design thinking specifically. I've been involved with a couple teams. We've done some 3Ps on hospital design and different things. And so I've seen some of those tools applied. I'm just curious from your experience, where does design thinking fit into the healthcare industry?
Yeah, that's a great question. And honestly, 3P is a very natural application to healthcare spaces. Led a bunch of 3P events, surgical suites, clinics, hospital floors. Very natural place to insert that. Design thinking, where I've spent the bulk of my time, is developing new care models. So how do we take design thinking? How do we take highly trained, very self-sufficient, doctors, physicians, advanced practitioners, and get them to reimagine how care can be delivered? And so when I'm working with clients on design thinking, it's, design thinking is one of the tools that I like to jump into is how are we best delivering for the patient?
It's such an important piece. I remember one of the things that we did was we actually laid someone on a bed, and we were wheeling them through the hallways. And I remember they were saying that the lights are just killing my eyes, like it's so bright. And so again, to your point, the patient experience is so key, so important, and listening to them and understanding, what they're feeling and what they're experiencing is such an important piece of, designing not just the facility, but the experience itself of, when they're
yeah. And I'll never forget this one time this physician told me we were running rapid experiments. We designed a new thing. We were enlisting her patients to run through this whole day we had set aside, and we got the patient in there, and she's like, "Hey, look, I know the patient. I've been her physician for 20 years. I know what she's thinking." And I'm like, let's just go through the experiment. So afterwards, we're debriefing on the day, and we mentioned this one patient's name, and she goes, "Who are you talking about?" And we're like, "The blah blah blah." And she goes, "Who's that?" And then we read the formal name. She goes, "I didn't even know she went by a nickname.
Oh, wow.
She had a preferred name that she'd rather go by." So you can be working with someone for so long and you can be treating them for so long, but you can miss some of the basics. And patients really, there's obviously segmentation of a bunch of different patient types, but they trust the doctor and they want to follow the doctor, and they become a little different when they're in the healthcare situation. And you have to observe. You have to stick them on the table and roll them down the hallway, to get stuff out. So,
well, and being being intentional to take the time to get to know your patients. And I know I'm talking to our listeners out there who are not all in the healthcare industry, but put whatever you want into the term patient, right? Your employees, your peers, your customer, get to know them, understand what makes them tick, what's important to them, what's, what their experience is with you, and whatever value it is that you're providing to them. I mean, that's such an important piece of what we do as lean practitioners. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I was trained as an engineer and I designed cars for a dozen years. And then at some point I said, I want to understand why I'm designing what I'm designing. And so I went back and got my graduate degree, focused on market research. And that became my beginning of my journey to try to understand what the customer wants. And I'll tell clients today, still, I'm like, the best a patient or a customer or a client or a supplier can tell you is 50% of what they want. You have to observe the other 50% and offer the technical solution because you're the expert. So even just observing isn't enough, and asking isn't enough. You have to combine those two together. That's where the best results come out. And we see some amazing wins when that happens.
So true. So true. Well, Adam, I want to change gears just a little bit here. You've led transformations for over 17 years across 17 different industries. So you have a lot of experience, and obviously working, at the C-suite with senior leaders at organizations brings a whole nother side of just learning that I would love to hear from you on a couple things. Just at a higher level, what are your thoughts on the state of lean today? Maybe it's in the healthcare industry, maybe it's globally across all industries. I guess just throw out some general thoughts on what you think the state of lean is today.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I'm not going to comment specifically on manufacturing because I think a lot of manufacturing people have a pretty good understanding. But let's talk about the industries that aren't traditional lean. So this could be financial services, this could be education, this could be healthcare, this could be software. So in general, now we've had lean practitioners, those trained by, directly from the Japanese, operating as consultants for 20 plus years now. You've got a bunch of them are retired, the George Koenigsegers, who brought it to, and Jake Brake and Danaher, and some of the other stuff. But today, when I go places, everybody has done lean, right? So healthcare's done lean because what ThedaCare did, and what they did out in the Pacific Northwest with Joan Wellman, and some of these others. And so, you go to software companies, they're like, no, we're Agile. We don't need lean here. And so there's a pervasive state of exposure to lean. And it kind of reminds me of the news that happened just this week or maybe last week with design thinking and IDEO laying some people off and people saying design thinking's dead. In general, the people who say they've done lean aren't doing lean. They've gotten some green belt, they've run a Kaizen, but their operations are a disaster. And you walk in and it's 15 seconds. I mean, you can tell them, hey, I can save you 10 million right off the bat. Like it's easy to tell you don't have it in your operations, but a lot of people think they're done it and they've already reaped everything from it.
Right. Yeah, no, it's so true. So many organizations that we work with, when I hear that, like, oh yeah, we already did that stuff, it didn't work for us or whatever, like they just are completely missing the reality of what true continuous improvement is all about.
Yeah.
So it's always funny to me, similar to you. Do you think that, so I know the answer to this and I know your answer to this, but I want our listeners to hear, do you think that lean is still relevant today in the industries that you work in?
That's a great question because so 3 years ago I spoke at a conference and the title of my speech was "Lean is Dead." Of course, I didn't mean that, but lean is more relevant now than it has ever been. And if you're not doing it, if you're a startup, okay, maybe you can kind of get away because you've got some unique value proposition, or if you've got a really cool product that doesn't, there's not really a competitor that exists. Lean's probably, you not have to benefit from it. You can, but for the rest of the world, if you're not doing lean, you're leaving money on the table for investors. You're leaving good stuff on the table for your customers. And we have this whole like DEI push right now, and I can't imagine lean without diversity. Like you have to pull a diverse group of people together to find a unique solution. The executives don't know the answer. And whenever I sit down with them and tell them what their line level people said, they're shocked. They're like, they told you that? So yes, lean is more relevant, I think, than it's ever been. And I think we still have a tremendous amount of growth and GDP that can be created and increased from the application of it.
Yeah, so true. And it sounds like you obviously stay very relevant with the trends and understand where things are going in industry. Obviously, over the last few years, there were a lot of struggles with, especially in manufacturing with the some of the supply chain issues and different things like that. I think a lot of that is changing, and the whole world is changing. But where do you go to stay current with lean trends? Is it LinkedIn? Is it podcasts? Where do you go? How do you know what's going on in the world? And what would your advice be to those that are listening in on how to stay current with lean trends?
Yes, and so podcasts are a major source. And you run an excellent podcast. I'm not saying that just because you're on here. Mark Rabin runs an excellent one. But I like to follow. And pretty sure you've had these guests on, like Katie Anderson and Karen Martin, Baba Miliani. Some of these people that are out and talking. I also coach the MBOE students at Ohio State. So that graduate program, I'm involved every year. In that, I get to see, all new industries every year related to that. But on LinkedIn, I have two favorite groups. I've got my subject matter experts, and then I've got the old school people that people argue against. And I learn a lot from the comments under some silly statements.
Sure.
And then I think, honestly, the guy I'm probably listening to the most now is Chris Cooper out of the UK.
Okay.
I think he's probably the most underrated lean resource in the world right now. So LinkedIn and podcasts are my two primary ones, but on LinkedIn, I'll go after the negative comments just as hard as I will the positive comments.
Oh yeah, I'm with you there. I have a tendency sometimes to drum up some of those, and some of it is intentional because, and not to upset anybody or anything like that. But realistically, sometimes the best learning comes when two people don't agree on something and to
Absolutely
have that conversation. And I don't see any better place than right in the public where people can learn from it. And I'll be the first one to admit that I'm a lifelong learner. I'm always learning, and I don't have all of the right answers all the time. And sometimes I put stuff out there that is wrong. And again, I'm completely open to hearing the negative feedback or the comments about that being wrong. That's how we all learn. So
yeah,
I think I'm with you. I love hearing that. Obviously sometimes it gets a little bit too far, and then it's like, okay, what are you trying to prove here?
Right.
It is what it is. So that's great. And so Chris Cooper, you said, out of the UK. Anyone else specifically that comes to mind that you follow in that post?
I really like Karen's stuff. I think Karen Martin puts out some really great content. Gosh, there's a bunch, but those are probably two that I look at, a lot for thought leadership. I have a bunch of subject matter experts too that I get to debate, and just in my career and in my life, and that probably strengthens me. Dr. John Toussaint and I have spent years debating topics in healthcare, and it's just really allowed me to develop my methodologies, hone his methodologies. Mm-hmm. And so those are not public forums, but it really helps me become sharper.
Yeah, that's great. I will say Mike Rother is now on LinkedIn as of a couple weeks ago. So welcome to LinkedIn, Mike. So if you haven't connected with Mike yet, for all of you that are listening out there, make sure you go out and find his LinkedIn page. Hey, let's talk about some of your past experiences. Again, mm-hmm. It's always great to talk with someone who, has a direct connection at the C-suite, has done work in transformations. And again, I know you're heavy in healthcare, but you've worked in many other industries and mm-hmm. spent your time, working with organizations, in other industries. But what would you say, across all your time with these different organizations, what would you say, are some common mistakes that you see with transformations?
Yeah, I mean, that's a fantastic question. And actually, this year, for 2024, I'll be on the speaking circuit talking about this a lot, because I see so many times simple mistakes being made that if we can just countermeasure them, that we're going to get a lot of traction. So obviously, number one, leadership. If they're not bought in, you're not going to get it. And that doesn't have to be the CEO, but it needs to be the highest level at autonomy. So if there's, if it's just GM of the plant, if it's the department manager that kind of has freedom to do what he or she wants, that leader has to be bought in. That's table stakes. But some of the stuff, I think the one of the biggest ones that I see today is that leaders expect people under them to just go do it. Okay, they don't have it tied to a key strategy. They don't want to touch it themselves. They don't want to learn it themselves. They just kind of shove it out there. And then I'm gonna pick on my lean practitioner friends for a little bit, that we try to force tools in on the situation. And, hey, let's get leadership standard work. Let's run huddle boards. Let's do 5S. Let's, value stream mapping, Kaizen event. And we're not actually painting the picture of why we need to be doing this. Or, I mean, when you walk into the CFO's office, you better be showing some benefits, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, healthcare, whatever. If we don't have money, we can't do our mission.
Right.
So, if you're not dedicating enough staff, if you're assuming technology is going to fix it, if you allow antibodies to stay on, if you're not measuring improvement, those are all very simple mistakes when it comes to transformation that you're going to fail. And but yeah, those are several of the ones that I see.
Sure. Now, you mentioned technology. Anything specifically that you've seen companies applying from a technology standpoint that you think is something that companies should look at, or leaders should look at as maybe a best practice, or one that's being missed that maybe should be looked at?
So the biggest mistake is not understanding the workflow of the technology. So there's CIOs have enjoyed a tremendous acceleration in power the last 10, 15 years. Not the most emotionally intelligent, not the most business savvy, definitely the most technical. And they've learned the words to share why they want to get something, whether they're following a word like generative AI, whether it's cybersecurity, and they found a way to buy things. And then vendors know that. I was at GE Healthcare. We knew what to say when we walked in. So I think the most important thing that we can do when we're leading lean is, how's this going to impact the workflow? Because it should be creating value. We shouldn't be adding waste to the system. We should be pulling it out. And very, very rarely do I see an analysis post that goes in that says, yeah, we got this done. So like just launching an ERP because everyone else is, or buying Epic because everyone else is, those are mistakes. Or jumping on a bandwagon and just not understanding how it's going to impact your customers just because you want to use the term, I think is probably where I see the most mistakes. But the companies that are thoughtful about it, that understand their customers, that know where they're coming from, they go and search out technologies instead of having them come find them. Those are really the big winners.
Yeah, no, that's good advice for sure. And it obviously it depends on the size of the organization and the location, and but definitely even to your earlier point around keeping an eye on lean trends. I mean, technology is changing so quickly, and if you don't have someone focused on looking for best practices or watching the direction of the changes that are happening, I mean, I think that's a miss too. Just not.
I mean, if you're not using AI extensively, you've missed.
Right.
I mean,
right.
you're throwing tons of money away, and not everything out there that's good, but there's a lot out there that, I mean, it's no-brainer stuff to get in. And some of you probably even using it through your vendors and you don't even know it.
Right. Well, and there has to be, I just put an article out a couple weeks ago, maybe it was last week, just around the importance of also, paying attention to manual side of things when
Yeah.
obviously technology is important and we want to utilize technology and stay current with the trends and be, up to date on our technology, but also I don't want to lose the power that there is in our mind, in human minds and human, emotions and thoughts and ideas. And so there has to be a partnership between the two, and I think that's also important too.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, look, I'll use Bard or ChatGPT or whatever to compose an email or a blog post, but if I just process that through, it's junk. Because there has to be some creative edge to it. There needs to be, my viewpoint, my energy behind it,
Mhm.
and then this is just simple text stuff, right? There's all kinds of other things that you can use AI for, but man, if you're not enhancing it as a human, then you're missing out a lot.
Yeah, so true. So true. So I think about my listener base, and
Mhm.
I know that I have a large number of people that are, in their 40s and 50s listening. But I also have a large base of younger lean practitioners that are just getting into their careers, coming out of college, whatever it may be. And, just starting to get involved with a company, and, maybe they're in healthcare, maybe they're in manufacturing. And I'd love to increase that number because I want more young people to understand the power of lean and continuous improvement. So if you were speaking to, a group of younger lean practitioners, what would be one piece of advice that you would give them?
Don't use the word lean.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
And I think because the 40 somethings and the Gen Xers are going to say we've done that, or I tried it. I think they would be more impactful if they snuck the tools in, getting the bosses what they wanted, the target, the KPIs that the bosses are out. And then if they ask them what they do, they say, well, I found the standard work form, or I did this process flow chart, and I found, waste here, and here. I think it'd be easier for them to gain traction. Now, if they're in an organization that already has a lean culture, then you need to dive in hardcore, get certified, have meaningful projects, but show actual results. Like in Six Sigma, if you're doing the DMAIC process, make sure your control is control. We don't want it bouncing back up. Whenever I run a Kaizen event or, do value stream app, I want to watch that metric for months, not weeks, not days, but for months to make sure that we actually address the root cause. So the younger guys, I would say maybe hide it, but learn the tools and apply it really well. You'll know better if you're getting traction with your boss, if he likes the word lean or if he doesn't. But the principles work, period.
Yes. That's so true, Adam, and such good advice. I'll stand behind that. I worked with an organization, I think I've talked about this before, but they struggled with lean terminology because of some past issues that they had with external consultants or whatever it might have been. I had this internal manager who kept wanting to use tack time as a and I kept kind of coaching him on, do we really want to use that word, because tact is generally associated with lean, and we know that we have some struggles or some issues with that, so I suggested, instead of using the word the words tack time, let's use customer demand rate. And so that's what we did, and that resonated really well with the group. And so you have to know your customer, you have to know who you're working with, and understand, and tweak, be flexible, tweak. I mean, did they have less value by calling it a customer demand rate? We got the same outcome, right? So, but what I did was I met them where they were at, knowing where they were at, and so you're going to be able to move a lot quicker and have much more traction if you know and are willing to adjust, for your clients. So
absolutely,
stories of where you've had to make an adjustment or be willing to be flexible with the tools with any clients that you've worked with?
Oh my goodness. So, well, I think the Japanese terms in general in healthcare aren't well accepted. So I try not to use them at all unless they've been introduced to it. And then if I find a misapplication, so let's just say 5S or 6S, or some places I think they're up to 7 or 8 now. And it's like, okay, let's just use the term organized. And as a lean fundamentalist, I know that's not what it is. But let's just call it that, okay? And so, whether say we're going to run an improvement event instead of a Kaizen, or we're going to get breakthrough results in a couple of days, so some places I'll go and I'll just tell them, hey, let's just call it Cucumber. We'll work with Cucumber. You guys will generate a phrase during this week that I'm here, and we're going to stick with that phrase.
Yeah.
And then so I'll just go in and wait to hear how they describe it. Like when I'm doing reflections, handing out Post-it notes, what'd you learn, what went well, what didn't. Those things are brilliant to pull into terms. You can say, okay, we're going to call it this. And if you want to go research, if you want to go look at the literature, then this is what the term they use. They call it. But I mean, I'm extremely, extremely flexible. And I know a lot of my colleagues want to hang me for that, but it's the same tool. I'm just calling it something else.
Right. No, absolutely. No, that's good. Yeah, I think I'm in complete agreement with you. I think that we have to be willing to be flexible with the terms. And, sometimes organizations have their own language, their own acronyms and their own language that they use. And, working at this C-suite or with executive leaders, the first step is really finding out what's important to them. What are they trying to achieve? And then, try to use whether it's, their language or their, whatever it is that they want to achieve, try to fit that in somehow. But, I mean, that's what we're trying to do, is get them to buy into it and then, move ahead. So whatever you have to do, as long as you're improving, that's what
I mean. So for instance, I'm at Mayo Clinic right now. That's one of my clients, and they have a very rich heritage, and they have something called rich ties, and those are their key values that they want espoused. Well, if I'm going to bring in Shingujitsu values, right, they're going to say, well, we have these rich ties. So I'm just going to look at the alignment between the different values, and I'm going to use their terms.
Right.
And they just bought in way faster that way.
Absolutely. That's a great example for sure. And again, you can try to push the other side, but it's going to create confusion.
It's just slow.
Things are going to be slower.
Wow.
So that's such great advice for sure. So let's go the other direction, Adam. What if we were talking to the older generation, or, I don't know, maybe it is, some younger lean practitioners, but, what about lean practitioners that have been doing this for a while and they feel stuck, like they've hit a wall, they're not getting the support that they were getting before, or maybe it's something individually that they are just having a hard time moving ahead on things. What would your suggestions be around getting momentum for someone like that?
Yeah, I see a lot of this among my fellow Gen Xers. I mean, there's some maybe older millennials that are, suffer from this, but I see a lot of my Gen X colleagues going through the same thing, and they're very knowledgeable on the tools, and they're comfortable in their role. They've been in their job for a while, and I think they've lost a voice of authority amongst their peers. They're not communicating at the executive level, and it's kind of pigeonholed them off to the side. So the most drastic move, and a lot of times this is not because they're like, well, I'm going to retire in 10 or 15 years, is just switch roles. Get into an operational role. Switch companies. Okay, let's say that's not viable. Okay, if you want to do it, start from the basics. You're going to have to do grassroots. You're going to have to run some projects that get the attention of the executives in that division, in that area. And once you do that, they're going to want to know how and why. So, I mean, look, I'm an outsider. I come in. Sometimes companies embrace me. Sometimes they don't for 2 years before they say, hey, you're one of us now. But every single time I can find out what they want in an hour conversation. And if I can apply the tools from that conversation, so, Gen Xers or whoever feel like they're getting stuck, talk to a leader, find out what metric is driving them nuts that they're having to stay up with. And it may not be a lean metric, and then create a project or a set of improvement deliverables that can impact that. And you're going to get traction immediately. You just are. Or go to a conference and get excited by someone again.
Yeah.
There's people, and we can use the youth out there that are get excited about stuff, but people that are passionate about things, it's fun to be on others that inspire you. And it's easy to say we've been to all the conferences, I've read all the books, I've seen all the people, but just to hit like a mini restart. Call it your mid-career crisis.
No, that's so true though. I love going to conferences for that exact reason. It's, obviously I'm always looking to learn. I'm a lifelong learner. I'm always looking to learn, but also the excitement of being around people that are moving in the same direction as I am, and speak the same language and get excited about the same things. I mean, there's a lot of really great lean geeks out there.
We have a big tribe. We have
you
a
surround
very
yourself
big tribe
with other lean geeks.
Yeah.
We have a lot of fun. So it's definitely a good thing for sure. So yeah, that's great. Just kind of bringing this full circle back around. I mentioned earlier that you have an Amazon best-selling book, specifically talking about design in healthcare, and then also the Healthcare Innovators book. Tell us a little bit about that book. What was the motivation behind it, and who are you looking to reach? What's the purpose behind it? Just fill us in on that.
Yeah, so I left industry in 2006, and my boss at my consulting firm said, apply all of this to healthcare. And I said, no, it won't work. And he kept bugging me, apply this to healthcare, apply the development process to healthcare. And so he kept hounding. I started running experiments across the US with different health systems. We got a couple, and we got one or two that worked out really well, and said, okay, now if we were to make that a process to provide systemic innovation. Now I'm defining innovation as, obsoleting a product or service and having it replaced with a new one. So in healthcare's case, care models. There were, at the time of me writing that book, only 2 examples of systemic innovation that wasn't technology related in the United States. Very low amount. Cleveland Clinic was one of them. I can't remember who the other one was off the top of my head. So I wrote that book with the sole purpose of healthcare companies saying, if we want to do systemic innovation, if we want to create new care models, if we want to be able to go with value-based care, if we want to go with population health, if we want to be able to adopt, if we want to be able to survive our supply chain disruptions, during pandemics, this is the process. I wrote it as an allegory, and then I have an accompaniment workbook that goes with it, basically all the exercises to do that, so that companies can say, okay, we get it. This is how we should do systemic innovation within healthcare delivery.
Yeah, I love it. Love it. That's great. And obviously, for the healthcare industry, do you think, are there anyone specifically in the healthcare industry, any specific roles or people that would benefit from this, or just anyone has any position in the healthcare industry? Yeah,
so this is a very tough. We incorporated this into Catalysis's framework, through our debates with Dr. Toussaint. And so that's in Catalysis, has it built into their framework now. It's very tough for people to adopt, especially right now, because healthcare has just been decimated by the pandemic, the cost going up, everything. But if someone were to want it, I usually find it in a couple of places. Chief medical officer, because there's something new that they want to try. Actually, the COO, you would think would be excellent, kind of doesn't necessarily want it, because when it comes push to shove, they're going to care more about what the hospital is doing that day than what the hospital, or lack of a hospital, is going to do tomorrow. Chief nursing officer is a good one. CFO, always a great place to start. But I've found the most traction between probably like doctor, nurse practitioner area. Like that,
Nice.
those people get it. They want to do it.
Sure.
And that's where I see the most build. Medically home. If you go look up Medically home, absolute brilliant story. It was, we started work with Atrius doing care for elderly. Fantastic physician, Dr. Pippa, Eliza Schulman. And then she ended up leaving Atrius and joining Medically home, and they've just blown up across the U.S. Amazing example of applying these principles.
Love it. Love it. Good examples. So if someone wanted to find your book, I'm guessing it's on Amazon.
Oh, yeah, you can check it out on Amazon or Routledge. Yeah, it's there.
Okay, so just search Lean Design in Healthcare. Should pop right up, Adam Ward. What we'll also do is we'll drop a link in the show notes for the book if you're interested to go out and grab that. Adam, how would people get a hold of you if they're interested to connect or have questions outside of the book?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I want to make sure that it is written Lean Design in Healthcare. But the publishers asked me to create Lean Design in Manufacturing, Lean Design in Software. 85% of the principles in there are going to work. And so if you're like, I'm hearing healthcare, but I'm turned off, just get the book. It's a fun, easy, short read to get. If you want to get a hold of me, Innovation Adam on LinkedIn is probably the easiest. I do have a website, adammward.com. Mainly for speaking engagements. You can also, get a hold of me there, but LinkedIn, I'm the most responsive, but you can also go through my website as well. Perfect.
Well, we'll put all those links in the show notes. So if anyone is interested to reach out, you'll be able to get the link there. Adam, it's been great to have you on. Great conversations. Love your thoughts on lean trends, the state of lean today, lean being relevant, but obviously, the work that you've done across the different industries that you've worked in. Just appreciate your work and appreciate you being on the show. And we'll have to do this again at some point.
Oh man, thank you so much. Anytime. You've been an excellent host. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Adam.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Lean Solutions Podcast. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to subscribe. This way you'll get updates as new episodes become available. If you feel so inclined, please give us a review. Thank you so much.